Newsday continues here on One News Now. I'm Danny Laurel, and here are the biggest stories on the economic and corporate front. The Philippines booked $923 million in foreign direct investment net inflows in October of 2022. Now, data from the Bangko Sentral shows that October's total is 6.3% higher than the $868 million net inflows in the same month of 2021. However, from January to October 2022, FDI net inflows dipped 8.3% year-on-year to $7.6 billion. The Bangko Sentral says October's equity capital placements largely came from Japan, the United States, and Singapore. These investments were channeled mostly into the manufacturing, real estate, as well as financial and insurance sectors. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas is likely to raise benchmark interest rates by 25 or 50 basis points next month. BSP Governor Felipe Medalla said the pressure to match rate hikes by the U.S. Fed has been waning. He noted, though, that further increases could not be ruled out until inflationary pressures ease. With this, Medalla expects the country's inflation to settle within the 2 to 4% target later this year. The central bank raised interest rates by a total of 350 basis points in 2022 as inflation soared to multi-year highs. The Monetary Board is scheduled to meet on February 16th for its first policy meeting this year. Now, even Finance Chief Ben Diokno now says the central bank has room to transition into smaller rate hikes as inflation is expected to ease in the coming months. Diokno also tells Bloomberg that the economy may have grown by at least 7.5% in the fourth quarter.
The governor said possible 25 basis points to 50, and that could be a pivot towards the end of or middle of the year.
Even with inflation at 8%?
Yeah,
he said that 5.5% rates are
very
still...
confident that inflation will hit 2.5 to 4.5 this year. Of course, we know that it will hit 5.8 last year. But we are confident that with both monetary and fiscal policy working together, we'll be within the range. And by 2024, we'll hit right in the middle of the 2 to 4% target.
Okay, and so what is, in your eyes, your terminal rate? And how soon can we hit it?
It's not for me to say what our terminal rate is, but as you know, this is decided by a monetary board, 7-man board, of which I am one of the 7, right?
Right.
So it won't be, it won't depart from the current rate, I think.
You've always proposed or advocated for kind of a whole of government approach.
Correct.
You know, whether it's, you know, how do you think that monetary and fiscal policy should be in sync? How important is that to you that, you know, with the rising rates of rates monetarily, that you need to be kind of sort of balancing it by capping the cost of how government services its debt burden?
Well, for example, during the pandemic, we really need to help the national government because of the shortfall in revenues as a result of the shutdown in the economy. And but at the same time, there's heavy pressure on spending for more health services. So the central bank helped the government, and that's provided by law. We are allowed to, under extraordinary situation, we can help them. Now we have actually retracted our assistance to them. And so moving forward, I think we're doing just fine, I think.
How sheltered do you think, or insulated is the Philippines from, you know, all these concerns about a global recession?
Well, I would not be telling the truth if I say we're not affected, but we're far away from Ukraine and Russia. And the Philippine economy is driven mostly by domestic concern. We have a very young population. They're consuming a lot, and our exports is not that. Our foreign trade rather is not that big. Our tourism is not comparable to China or to Thailand or Bahamas or that type. We're not reliant too much on this. We're more reliant on overseas Filipino workers, and that has proven to be resilient even during the pandemic. It did not shrink. In fact, we are very optimistic that it will be expanding as a result of the recovery.
You mentioned that you believe inflation is going to come down this year. Is there still, I guess, any sort of I guess, inkling from the government to try to implement non-monetary measures to bring down food and energy costs?
Oh yeah, because it's really, we look at the recent inflation numbers and it's food rather than oil that is driving inflation. So we have to increase production and we have to import as needed on the food items.
Does that mean suspending or even adjusting tariffs?
Oh yes, yes. In fact, we have extended the executive order relaxing the tariff on certain commodities.
Do you think that's going to dent revenues at a time when funds are
not
wanting?
necessarily. I think I'm confident that since during the pandemic we have reformed the tax system, we'll be able to collect more, and with digitalization that will improve tax administration.
What are your plans in terms of further consolidating the nation's finances and in terms of revenue enhancing measures? What are you looking at this year?
Last year, for example, we collected more than we programmed to collect. And so we had more elbow room for spending. And I'm confident that that will be the same situation this year. And there are many more assets that we can actually privatize. And on the spending side, we have actually we are more inclined to develop public-private partnership. In fact, we have this Public Services Act where we opened up some sectors for 100% foreign ownership, telecommunication, airports, expressways and shipping, so private investors can come in and invest.
You've also recently tapped into the dollar bond market.
Oh, yes.
as well. Do you plan to do more?
It's part of our financing program, which is 25% foreign and 75% domestic, and so it's within that range. And the reception of the market was fairly impressive. If I remember right, around 28.2 billion, and we only need around 2 billion. Okay.
And so, are you looking at other currencies as well then?
Mostly, well, maybe right now dollars, but we can maybe explore the Middle East because of the petrodollars.
And how soon do you think you could do another international bond issue? You think?
Maybe pretty soon. Plus, we are also planning to issue what we call dollar-denominated retail bonds. And this is for our overseas Filipino workers who would like to invest in this kind of instruments.
I was going to get your forecast when it comes to growth as well. I mean, third quarter, a surprise, sort of uptick of 7.6%. Is the fourth quarter of last year going to be slower, or how do you see
I think the fourth quarter of last year will be at least 7.5. So we're pretty sure that it will be at least 7.5%.
We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Danny Laurel. The national government raised $3 billion from its first US dollar bond issuance for 2023. Data from the Treasury showed that the government sold $500 million worth of 5.5-year notes with a coupon rate of 4.625%. $1.25 billion were also raised from 10.5-year papers priced at 5%, while $1.25 billion worth of 25-year sustainability bonds were also sold. The three-tranche offering was launched on Monday, January 9th, at a size of at least $500 million each. Now, proceeds of the bonds will be used for general budget financing, as well as financing or refinancing of assets in line with the government's framework for sustainable finance. Now, Finance Chief Ben Diokno touted the figure, saying, quote, "The robust demand for the country's first international bond offering in 2023 represents, quote, a strong vote of confidence from international investors." Meralco will now proceed to negotiating the contract for its 200-megawatt baseload energy requirement. This as the unsolicited proposal of Solar Philippine Batangas Baseload Corporation, or SPBBC, faced no dispute in the second round of competitive selection process. SPBBC's offer involves a 20-year contract starting 2024 at 4 pesos and 65 centavos per kilowatt hour at 100% capacity factor. The contract capacity and guaranteed output will be sourced by the SPBBC from its 1,800-megawatt solar project, which is currently under development. Meanwhile, Meralco customers should brace for higher electricity bills this month. That's due to an increase in the generation charge and the completion of refunds. Households that consume 200 kilowatt hours would see their monthly bills increase by around 125 pesos, while those consuming 500 kilowatt hours will see an increase of over 300 pesos. Microsoft is in talks to invest as much as $10 billion in ChatGPT creator OpenAI. That's according to people familiar with the matter. Bloomberg Quick Take reports how the viral AI bot could be improved.
It has been heralded alternately as a Google killer and the
most important general purpose technology since the wheel or fire.
ChatGPT is an AI-powered chatbot whose answers honestly feel human. But the very feature that makes it seem almost magical also poses a colossal problem, because we don't really know where its answers are coming from. Let's start with the basics. ChatGPT is built by OpenAI, a company that's backed by Microsoft, and it's more or less free for anyone to use. It works by ingesting hundreds of gigabytes of text data on which it is then trained to generate human-like responses. It's pretty mind-blowing. This is an essay that it wrote about Romeo and Juliet. This is some software code. It can even generate jokes that are almost funny. Crucially, it works differently from Google. It doesn't just quote sources verbatim and present it to you. Instead, it works much the way a human would. If I've taken an undergraduate course in, say, critical theory, and someone asked me about the German sociologist Theodor Adorno, I would dig into the recesses of my memory and cough up an answer. I might not necessarily know the exact source of that answer, some book or lecture from more than a decade ago. Frankly, my answer might not be entirely accurate. ChatGPT is similar. It doesn't cite a source the way that a responsible journalist or academic would. Google, for all of its justifiable criticism for the way that it scrapes data from other websites and presents them on its own platforms, does at least cite the source. Same with Wikipedia. If you read an article that feels a little bit sketchy, you can click through the source and find for yourself whether you think it is accurate. And beyond just checking the veracity of any information, the source itself doesn't get any credit. There might be less incentive to post things online if it's just being scraped by some AI algorithm. This is a bigger issue with AI as a whole. The very nature of deep learning is such that often the system itself doesn't know the source of the information that it's presenting. ChatGPT is just a beta for the moment. Maybe some of these issues can be fixed, but that's also why it's worth discussing them right now.
For more updates, visit News 5, The Philippine Star, and Business World Online. Visit our website, onenews.ph, for more in-depth analysis. You can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Danny Laurel. Join us again at 2 p.m. We are One News, all sides, all the time.